Hello there. Welcome into a Friday edition of the show. So glad to have you, whether you've chosen to listen via your radio, online at extrasports1300.com, or my new favorite way to listen to this radio station, not during my show. That would be, I'm already listening to my show, but the new and improved Extra Sports 1300 app, sponsored by Diversus Health, mental health and well-being for all, a veritable cornucopia of sports topics coming your way over the course of the program. I do have one guest. His name is Corey Roldan. He works for KKTV 11 Sports, and we're going to talk some football. High school, college, NFL, all of it. That's coming up at 4:20. The rest of the time, you can be my guest. The text and phone line are the same for your convenience. 719-247-1313. I think, look, there's only one place to go to start the show, and it's the same place every show on this radio station throughout the day has been going first. Because it's the biggest story in sports right now. And that's what happened to Tua Tagovailoa last night. The result of the game, while I will get to it, is certainly secondary, considering Tua's history with concussions. I saw a lot of reaction last night. And a lot of people who know what they're talking about, who played the game, who have maybe dealt with concussions in their career, really understand the gravity of the situation for Tua more than maybe even you and I do. Tony Gonzalez being chief among them, very emotional when talking about the situation. And I understand it. The one thing I will not do is sit here and say that Tua Tagovailoa has to retire. That's the one thing. Look, I'll tell a player they need to retire because they're washed or because they're not any good anymore or they can't play at a certain level. But when it comes to health, especially something that can be as scary as concussions, not going to do that. And even the head coach of the Miami Dolphins today is not willing to do that.
It would be so wrong of me to even sniff that subject, and it's more in line of actually caring about the human being, and that's something that entirely, you're talking about his career, right? His career is his, and that's something that I think I just really, really, really wish. I totally understand it, and it's not misplaced. I totally get how that's where people want to go to. I just wish that people would for a second hear what I'm saying, that bringing up his future is not in the best interest of him.
And it needs to be his decision. And you can worry if he does eventually make his way back out onto the football field. And that's where it's coming from. And that's what Mike McDaniel is talking about. You could be a little bit more callous or jaded about the line of questioning and think that it's just people trying to, get clicks, get content, that kind of a thing. But I think in this regard, in this particular case, we can kind of put that to the side and believe the best in people. I think there was a visceral reaction to the contact that Tua sustained last night. And there are people that are legitimately, even people that don't know Tua, that are legitimately worried and borderline scared about what another concussion could do. So I'm not going to sit here and shame anybody. Just like Mike McDaniel said, he understands what place it's coming from. There were people last night, NFL players, past and present, that were speaking from the heart, that were not trying to come up with a hot take or drive engagement. They were sharing their legitimate, heartfelt feelings about Tua. But it's still his decision in accordance with what his doctors say. And I hope he gets second opinions, third opinions. I hope he doesn't just wait for the all clear from the Miami team doctor and then go back out there. I hope that he consults people that have nothing more than his well-being in mind when they consult him on these things. And whatever decision he does end up coming to should be respected. I will say that I hope the Miami Dolphins err on the extreme side of caution here. There's 10 days between now and the next Miami game. Especially for this franchise and its recent history dealing with this particular player and this injury, this kind of an injury, I really hope that Miami, if Tua decides he wants to continue playing NFL, I hope that they come just short of locking him in a closet on a Sunday to keep him from getting right back out there. I hope they slow play this even more than the league's concussion protocol dictates that they do. If he's ready to come back in 10 days, I say wait another week. Miami can't screw this up. Not after what happened earlier in his career. So that's what I hope. Whether Tua wants to play or not, that's ultimately his decision. And my hope is that he is told that it's as okay as it can be, understanding the inherent risk of the sport that he plays. I hope that he gets good news. And I hope, selfishly, because I enjoy watching Tua play football, that he's out there. But it's his decision. Obviously, that's the bigger story of last night, because that has far more wide-ranging consequences in the real world, not just in the make-believe football world that you and I live in for pretty much 12 months out of the year. Now, with that being said, the impact of last night for the Miami Dolphins football team, setting aside whether Tua does or does not play moving forward, because he was out there for a majority of that football game where the Miami Dolphins got smoked by Buffalo. And that is the second time in as many weeks that we have seen a team go up against their nemesis, go up against the team that many believe they cannot get through, right? It was the opener, Baltimore and Kansas City. The stakes are very similar. With what was seen as a lesser form of the Buffalo Bills, the Miami Dolphins still were dominated by that football team. And when you are on the level that Miami is, there aren't many games during a season that define your season. You don't ride the roller coaster of every week with the Miami Dolphins, with the Kansas City Chiefs, with the Baltimore Ravens, Detroit Lions. The list goes on and on and on. Right? When you are at a certain level, there are just a few games that we lock in on and say, this is a must get. Last night was a must get for Miami. Now, if they win, there's little to gain from our perspective, right? Well, the game was in Miami. Okay. Buffalo's weaker. It would have It wouldn't have moved the needle that much for Miami if they win, but they lost. And now you wonder if this team, if they can't get past Buffalo, can they legitimately say that they are a Super Bowl contender, even if they get Tua back and he stays healthy for the rest of the year? So there are some real questions, and they were being raised last night before Tua's injury, about what a loss like this would do. Does it put Mike McDaniel on the hot seat? Can you legitimately buy in to the Miami Dolphins as that division's best team or a Super Bowl contender if they can't get past what we believed was a lesser version of the Buffalo Bills? And I think those questions are very legitimate. But I'll put a spin on it in this way. I'm not trying to talk anybody out of the idea that Miami can't be taken seriously as a contender. But what I will say is and if I can share the blame, many people in my line of work underestimated what this Buffalo Bills team is. Because what they are, it's not Josh Allen putting on his Superman cape, although he's great. The Buffalo Bills team that I saw last night is the team that we have been begging the Buffalo Bills to be for years now. The difference with this team is not Josh Allen taking his game to another level. I don't see that. I see Josh Allen being Josh Allen, and Josh Allen's amazing. James Cook is the difference. How many years have we been saying, whether it's to protect Josh Allen's health, whether it's to protect the Bills from some of those untimely mistakes that Josh Allen has been prone to make a time or two? How long have we asked the Buffalo Bills to commit to the running game? Right? Run the football. Stop asking Josh Allen to be your best running back. Stop airing it out when the situation does not call for it. Pound the rock And they did. And I think it's a combination of who they have at running back now is a guy that can shoulder that. And Josh Allen made a little hint to this last night, whether he meant to or not. Letting Stephon Diggs go may have been addition by subtraction. Not from a talent perspective, because no one Josh Allen can throw the ball to on that football team is better than Stephon Diggs. But Josh Allen mentioned it last night. Everybody's going out and doing their job. Nobody's demanding the football. Nobody's expecting the football. They only expect the football if they do the work to get open. And this was the calculation that the Buffalo Bills were making. But it's hard to lose a player of that caliber and say you're better off for it. We did the same thing with Kansas City, right? With Tyreek Hill. But now Josh Allen has the liberty to throw the football to who's open with no fear that when he goes over the sideline that somebody's going to get in his ear. The Buffalo Bills aren't worse. They're different. And it's just like Kansas City when they lost, they traded Tyreek Hill. It didn't get worse. They still won. They were just different. They did it in different ways. And that's what I saw from Buffalo last night. They're committing to the running game. And it's easy to commit when the guy's running the ball like he was last night. Now, time will tell because there's a bigger conversation about the Buffalo Bills here, which is this version of Buffalo good enough? A season after they had what I thought was their best shot that they were ever going to get to knock off Kansas City. And they squandered it. Is this version of Buffalo good enough to do that? Because that's the question moving forward for Buffalo. They made an emphatic statement that division still goes through them. And if not for the Tua thing, Miami would be definitely doing some soul searching today about if they're ever going to get past that football team. But the bigger question is this different version of the Buffalo Bills different enough to make them good enough to beat the Kansas City Chiefs? That will require a larger sample size than 2 games. But that was an emphatic statement that the Buffalo Bills made last night. And if not for the injury to Tua, that's what would be leading every sports show today. Take your thoughts on last night. Tua's injury, Buffalo continuing to own the Miami Dolphins. 719-247-1313. Just getting going with this Friday edition of the show. Coming up next, I hope the Rams know what they have gotten themselves into. Talk more about it next. Today is the Ronald McDonald House celebration sponsored by MGA Home Care. Ronald McDonald House Charities of Southern Colorado has provided over 37 years of care for critically ill children and their families, and no one has ever received a bill. It's your support that makes it happen. So we are inviting you today to support what Ronald McDonald House Charities of Southern Colorado does. Every recurring gift of $20 a month is entered into a drawing for a $500 Shields gift card. Several ways for you to give, as little or as much as you are comfortable with. You could text the word radio to 719-223-3456. That ability to do that is sponsored by Children's Hospital Colorado of Colorado Springs, or you can go to extrasports1300.com. We have a jumping off point that you can go and give. And if you can, awesome. But just know the great work that they're doing at Ronald McDonald House Charities of Southern Colorado. And if at any point you see fit to give, know that it's a very worthy cause. And they would be very appreciative of your assistance. I think the CSU Rams may be put in their place a little bit tomorrow night. And they don't need to look that far to understand where saying things, boisterous things, can come back to bite you. Because the team they are playing tomorrow night is the poster child for saying things that ultimately come back to bite them. There have been a couple of quotes circulating said by Braden Fowler Nicolosi, the quarterback of the Colorado State Rams, and Torrey Horton, their star wide receiver. Nicolosi said, quote, "They got a rude awakening," talking about last year's meeting. "We'll see how far Instagram followers gets them." Horton said, "We should have murdered them guys. We're coming for revenge." Those were said to Romy Bean of CBS up in Denver. Now, I saw the video, and it looks very similar to the videos I saw from other media outlets on CSU's Media Day. Now, I'm making a leap here, but I saw other interviews with those two players with the same backdrop, kind of the same look, and it seems like those quotes were said by those two before the season started. Some things have changed from that time till now. Now, while Braden Fowler Nicolosi is 100% correct that they did get a rude awakening, CSU came to play at Folsom last year, and they gave CU all they could handle. That Colorado team that received a rude awakening was 2-0, was the toast of the college football world, had every network's college pregame show flocking to Boulder just to be a part of it. And I think it's fair to say that the Colorado Buffaloes overlooked CSU, disrespected them, and they found out. Now, in the end, it was still CU that was victorious. But I don't think anybody wearing black and gold, fans, players, coaches, thought that that game was going to be that close. Now they are meeting after CU has already experienced its rude awakening. That was in Lincoln. They are now not the toast of the college football world. They're closer to being a punchline. Everybody is dunking on them. Paul Feinbaum, who I think is secretly trying to get Deion Sanders to a place where he can more easily cover him, said that CU is on the verge of disintegrating. And I'm sure his remedy for that would be for Deion to go to Auburn or Florida State or USC or something like that. But that's neither here nor there. They are being mocked. They're being clowned. And they could not be further from the toast of the college football world. I don't think they're overlooking CSU. I think they are desperate to win this game and put what happened in Lincoln behind them. Now, nobody needs to tell them that it won't do very much beating CSU to change hearts and minds across the country about what they're doing in Boulder, but they can tell themselves that. The point is that Oregon can get away with that kind of rhetoric. I hope CSU knows what they're getting into, because they are not Oregon. And they have the full attention of the Colorado Buffaloes. I know when Torrey Horton and Braden Fowler Nicolosi made those comments, the world was a little bit different all of 3 or 4 weeks ago. I don't think there's any chance that CU is looking past CSU. I think not only are they looking to win, they're looking to embarrass Colorado State. And as much as Rams fans would like to believe that they got the full fury of the Colorado Buffaloes and the Buffaloes were locked in and ready to take on the Rams and you just nearly beat them at their best, I don't think that was the reality. And I'm not trying to take away credit for CSU. I'm simply trying to contextualize what last year's game was. They were looking past CSU, they got punched in the mouth, and they found themselves in a dogfight. Those same circumstances do not exist tomorrow. And I hope that Torrey Horton, who's a little banged up, and Braden Fowler Nicolosi and the Rams, who need a little bit more than a route of Greeley to change my mind about how good they are, I hope they understand what they're getting into tomorrow. That being said, the same rules apply for CU that they did a week ago. And this, unlike the Nebraska game, should be the game where they show that they are different than just Travis Hunter and Shedeur Sanders. That there's more to them than those two guys. They should be able to show it against CSU. If they can't show it against CSU, then it's not going to happen. It's just not. They have been beaten up all week over what happened in Lincoln. If there is not enough motivation from Deion Sanders and his staff to prove that all they needed was time and that they really are more balanced, that this offensive line is better, that this defense can stop people, I don't know when that motivation's going to come along. It has to be this week. Now, Nebraska had something to say about it. CSU shouldn't. Right? And I'm not trying to make CSU out to be a terrible football team, but this is the Big 12 against the Mountain West. I know, they're Pac-12 now. This is big brother, little brother, and CU should show it. If CSU can drag them into the type of game that we saw last year, then all of this stuff that's being thrown at Deion Sanders is not going to stop. It will only perpetuate it. They don't just need to run the football. They need to run it down CSU's throats. They need to light up the scoreboard. They need to make, this has to be a statement game. And even then, I understand it will not be enough. But that's just the world that the Buffaloes live in. But all they can do is go out and say, you may think that we're not good enough to compete at the highest level of college football, but we're certainly good enough to dispatch of CSU. And they need to do it emphatically. And they should have all the motivation and all the means to be able to do it. And if they don't, then CSU can continue to talk. And CU will be in even worse shape than they were in this past week. 719-247-1313. Take your thoughts and your predictions on tomorrow's Rocky Mountain Showdown. Coming up next, half the league is staring at an 0-2 start. Are the Broncos the team that needs a win on Sunday the most? Tell you next on Extra Sports 1300.
Sports 1300 app.
Trans-Siberian Orchestra returns to Colorado Springs with its winter tour, The Lost Christmas Eve, for 2 spectacular shows on Sunday, November 17th at the Broadmoor World Arena. Today, tickets are on sale, and you know how popular these guys are here in Colorado Springs. So if you want to go, get on it. BroadmoorWorldArena.com, where you can go to get those tickets to see Al and the Fellas in November. The unofficial start to the holiday season, I would say, is when TSO rolls through town. November 17th. Sean Payton was asked, I thought a fairly innocuous question today, but apparently it was not innocuous. He was asked that since there are quite a few players on this team that were a part of the turnaround last year in Denver, where they went on that winning streak, got back into the playoff race, in theory. If that kind of helps them extricate themselves from a jam like they are currently in, having lost their season opener.
Listen, we're not in a jam. I know what a jam is. You know, half the league's in a jam then if we're taking that premise. So.
Okay. A little salty. But I get his point. They'll be in a jam if they go 0-2. Maybe not at 0-1. But yesterday I mentioned that teams that start 0-2 do not typically make the postseason. Just one of the teams that started 0-2 last year ended up in the playoffs, and that was Houston. So, for those of you thinking the Broncos are this year's version of the Texans, I suppose they can lose Sunday and you still feel pretty good about things. But 0-2 is a jam. If you are seriously thinking that you can be a postseason team. And what I have heard from Sean Payton is kind of thinks that they are. So that makes Sunday, maybe he's not in a jam yet, but it makes Sunday pretty important. And I think you could look at the Broncos' schedule if they were to lose on Sunday and turn maybe some W's into L's and not be able to see a lot of W's the rest of the way. Things can change. Hey, they did it last year. You're going to hear that. But from a morale standpoint, it will be a huge blow to this team, Russell Wilson or not, if they lose on Sunday. But I don't think it's the most important game for an 0-1 team across the league. I think there are quite a few contenders. You could say both teams in the Browns-Jags game need a win. Jacksonville fashions itself to be a playoff team. They can't start 0-2. Same with Cleveland. Cleveland, I would say, needs it more given the news cycle. So it would be a blow to their playoff chances, but it would also not do much to make people kind of lighten up regarding their quarterback in the situation they have found themselves in. So Jags need it. Browns need it. I think the Jets need it no one's going to be impressed if New York bounces back to beat Tennessee, but if they lose, oh boy. Any team that has playoff aspirations should at all costs avoid falling to 0-2, just to be safe. But the team, to me, that needs a win the most to avoid going 0-2 is Cincinnati. Because if they go into Kansas City and they lose, then going bye-bye is all this idea that Joe Burrow is somehow the Kansas City Chiefs' kryptonite. And it's not going to be easy. How is the wrist of Joe Burrow? Looked like he had trouble gripping a Gatorade bottle. Don't have T. Higgins. Jamar Chase didn't participate in any kind of team activity all offseason. And you're getting Kansas City in Arrowhead when Andy Reid has a mini bye. The more time Andy Reid has to prepare, the worse it is for the opponent. It's not flat out bye. It's a mini bye. So I'm not saying the expectation level should be that Cincinnati beats Kansas City. Quite the contrary. But what of the future of the Cincinnati Bengals as a contender in the AFC? Like, what are we to make of it? Well, he doesn't have T. Higgins. Well, he won't have T. Higgins after this year. Right? So if he can't find a way without T. Higgins, then we can just say that that's a wrap for Cincinnati. They got to the one Super Bowl. They gave it their best shot. And we're now done with Cincinnati being a contender in the AFC. Still has Jamar Chase. And I know Chase is being worked back up to speed, but he's still Jamar Chase. And this is still Joe Burrow. I think if Cincinnati loses on Sunday, I think the mysticism around Joe Burrow being the only hope of the NFL to stop Chiefs three-peat will go out the window. So I look at these teams that are 0-1, and yes, anybody and then you add on top of it the history of teams that start 0-2 and whether they make the playoffs or not. So there's that on top of all of that. So every team that thinks they're a playoff team should avoid going 0-2. But when you're talking about the stakes of losing a game on Sunday to move to 0-2, I think it's with Cincinnati. I think they need it the most, and they may be one of the least likely teams to win. Because if they lose this game, they may not even get a shot at Patrick Mahomes in Kansas City come playoff time. So Cincinnati would be at the top of the list for me. But there are a lot of teams that can ill afford to fall to 0-2. And some of them are not just about how 0-2 teams fare when it comes to making the postseason. See Cincinnati. Maybe even see Denver. And I'll get into that coming up in just a little bit. Want to get some of your thoughts in here. 719-247-1313. With Tua's concussion, From the 719, if Tua plays again, he should wear a Guardian cap. I'm surprised that he wasn't one of the players that elected to be honest. Like, I don't even want to tread into the territory of Tua as is at fault or anything like that. But I am surprised that given his history that he would not seriously consider wearing a Guardian cap. And to begin with, certainly now, if he's going to come back, you would think that that would be a more serious conversation, whatever the reason was that he didn't elect to wear one of those. Steve G lamenting everything about last night's game and rethinking Miami's extension for Tua. How do you give a QB a contract extension with a history of concussions, whose wide receivers have to wait on long passes because of lack of arm strength, who has never won a playoff game? Hey, front office, ever hear of a franchise tag? Even with my last text, I hope Tua gets better, and it's his decision and no one else's. And I chuckle a little bit, but that's the dichotomy of being a fan, right? And I think you're being sincere on both counts. Maybe you're having a little buyer's remorse when it comes to Tua, but at the same time, as a human being, you're obviously worried about him. I am probably out on Tua beating Buffalo, but I just keep going back to, I've said this about Trevor Lawrence and Dak Prescott. You have to consider, and Brock Purdy, right? What's the alternative? Are you willing to go? Because you're going to see it if you're a Miami Dolphins fan, right? You're going to see this now. Skylar Thompson is going to be your guy for a little while at least. And I've seen every start that Skylar Thompson has had in the NFL. It hasn't been many, and they haven't been pretty. So that's why. Because it's not necessarily about how great the player you're paying is at the quarterback position. It's very much about, can we do better? Are we willing to stare out into the void like Cleveland has for years, like the Jets have, like the Broncos have, and try to cobble this thing together on a year-to-year basis with retreads and rookies? And if you're not willing to take on that risk, then this is what a quarterback costs. And I could say that about a multitude of different quarterbacks. Some of them I like a lot. Some of them I'm not so high on. Tua's closer to the high end than he is the low end. But when it comes to paying quarterbacks, it's you do this or you are the Atlanta Falcons. And then you just end up paying somebody else where we go, really? That much for that guy? Cost of doing business. 719-247-1313. On the other side of this break, I wanted to get into the Broncos and the Steelers and why the best path to a victory on Sunday is for the Broncos to beat the Steelers at their own game. Welcome in, Drive Time Sports. Ryan Kaufman with you on this Friday. A reminder, you can watch the show live on a daily basis. Granted, you follow us on at least one social media platform. We prefer for you to follow us on all of them, but we'll take what we can get. Facebook, X, Instagram, YouTube, the handle to watch the show, all the same, at XTRA Sports 1300. Corey Roldan of KKTV 11 Sports will join me in 20 minutes to discuss the football weekend, all the way from the prep ranks to the pro ranks. Looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to getting your thoughts on the weekend. 719-247-1313. Ryan, don't worry. Saw your text. We'll get to it when it comes to CU and CSU. But in the meantime, I want to talk a little Broncos Steelers. If you don't mind, update on Russell Wilson. Yeah, no last minute miracle, although wouldn't it be great theater? And pick your favorite wrestling theme song. Normally it's Stone Cold. That's where we all go, right? When we're talking about somebody shocking everybody and showing up, it's usually Stone Cold's theme song that runs through your head. But it could be anybody. You know, it could be, If You Smell, or You Think You Know Me, or Are You Ready? That's one of my favorite ones. When DX would show up unannounced. But that's kind of, I would imagine that's part of the deal when they're crafting wrestling theme songs, is we got to get them right away. So when that first note, that first word gets said, everyone freaks out. So pick your favorite wrestling theme song to do that. It would be quite amazing if all of a sudden Russell Wilson emerged from the Steelers tunnel and took the field on Sunday. It just doesn't look like that's going to happen. And I don't identify Mike Tomlin as a trickster. Seems like a pretty straightforward guy. And everything that he has said, even everything that Russell Wilson and Justin Fields have said, doesn't look to be any last minute switcheroo to get Russell Wilson out there on the field on Sunday. So alas, Justin Fields will have to suffice for your bloodlust, Broncos fans. But Vance Joseph yesterday described Sunday's game as being rock'em sock'em. Of course, he was talking about the defensive side facing the Steelers. I would actually apply that all the way through. I think that the clearest path to victory for the Denver Broncos is to essentially beat the Pittsburgh Steelers at their own game. They must run the football. That is the top non-negotiable of this game. The Broncos have to be able to run the football. They cannot turn it over, which means let's dial back the downfield throws from Bo Nix. And the Broncos defense has to play the way they did for 3/4 of the game against Seattle. Because Pittsburgh's going to try and do the same thing. They're going to look at what Seattle did and they're going to go, hey, we like Najee Harris better than Kenneth Walker. We'll just keep pounding the rock. I think that the Broncos essentially are going to have to morph into the Pittsburgh Steelers in order to beat the Pittsburgh Steelers. Given where Bo Nix is at right now, making just his second career start, given what you have seen. And I understand that there can be a reasonable expectation of improvement, but I still think the most solid game plan was the one that the Broncos started with. And I think they just deviated too much from it. Could they have expanded it? Could they have gotten could Sean Payton have gotten a little bit more into his bag? Absolutely. But the idea to start was the right one. And when the running game wasn't doing what the running game should do, then that's when things went haywire. I think they would have stuck with that kind of a passing plan for Bo Nix had they been able to establish the run. So take that, given that things went a little sideways against Seattle, and try to do it against Pittsburgh. If you do so successfully, this isn't one of those games to roll your eyes because the Broncos didn't score 20 points. You take 17-10 and you sprint home with the victory. Or I guess the Broncos are already home, but you get my point. You take 17-10. You take 14-10. You take 10-7. Let this thing be as ugly as possible. As long as you do the Steelers thing better than the Steelers, you'll win this football game. And I think there's even an opportunity to be a little bit more Sean Payton-like in this regard. If you commit to the run, if the defense plays at the level they were playing at for most of week one, if you don't ask Bo Nix to do too much, know that when the opportunity arises, and I think that's what the plan was for Seattle, run the football, ease Bo Nix into the game, keep it close, and when you need a big play on third down, that's where Sean Payton would go deep into his bag and scheme up some big pass play to either score the deciding touchdown or get a crucial third down to run out the clock. I think that was the initial plan. But you know what Mike Tyson said about plans. And I think that happened on Sunday. Now, Sean Payton was asked today, when something isn't working, and while they didn't mention it by name, I think it is clear it's the running game. Do you lose confidence and go to something else throughout the course of the game?
Never going to lose confidence. There's two things that take place in game you're paying attention to. How's the game unfolding? That can affect greatly, how you're calling your game. And then immediately the opponent you're playing relative to sequencing first down, second down, and so but that would be just having done this a long time, that would be my first thought.
Notice that last little bit he got in there. I've been doing this a long time, having done this a long time. Sean Payton gets this way sometimes, where he feels like his genius is being threatened or called into question, and he doesn't like that. That was a subtle little like, hey, I know better than you. Well, Sunday's going to be a great opportunity. Because I look at this game and I don't say this is a referendum game on Bo Nix. The dude's playing against TJ Watt and Alex Highsmith. Like, okay, it's insane if you're out on Bo Nix. If you're out on Bo Nix to begin with, then yeah, you need something to bring you in. And the Seattle game wasn't really the thing to bring you in. But if you were in on Bo Nix and are now out after the Seattle game, then I would question whether you were that in on Bo Nix to begin with. This would be another one of those games. If going against TJ Watt and the Steelers defense, you're like, Mom, Bo Nix didn't play well, I'm out. You probably weren't that into Bo Nix in the first place. I don't look at this game. I'm certainly eager to see what Bo Nix can do. And Joe Lombardi the other day was raving about Bo's meeting this week where he came in before they even turned on film. It's like, I did this wrong. I did this wrong. I got to do this better. You know, it very much added to the legend of Bo Nix, right? He went in there. You didn't even have to show him film. He knows exactly what he did wrong and how he can fix it. And I'm eager to see how that manifests itself on the field on Sunday. But if Bo Nix struggles, I don't think it'll be a referendum on Bo Nix. I think it'll be a referendum on Sean Payton. I mentioned this yesterday. Like, at what point, you know, it almost felt like Vance Joseph was up at the podium taking slings and arrows. And it's like his defense let up in the one quarter. Sean Payton's offense didn't work till the very end of the game. All the early success they had was given to them by the defense. I can be patient on Bo Nix. My patience is far less with Sean Payton. You chose to do this, guy. You cut Russell Wilson because you thought you'd be better off. And you picked Bo Nix higher than anybody had him being taken because you so believed that you would be able to win games with this guy. At some point, Sean Payton, who every day that goes by is further removed from the Super Bowl and further removed from his last playoff appearance, has to be questioned. Or maybe you question the entire experiment, but don't just say it's on Bo Nix. Because if you strap Sean Payton to a polygraph, he would pass with flying colors, believing he can win football games with Bo Nix. And looking at the schedule, this was one of them that you thought that the Broncos would win. Whether you thought they'd be a 9-win team or a 5-win team, you thought this one was one they would get. Sure, Bo Nix has to do some things better. But the best play of the game really seemed like more of a credit to Bo Nix than it was to Sean Payton. So at some point, Sean Payton's got to show up as the genius. When they started to go on that run last year, that was the defense. It was the defense. And it's okay because Russell Wilson was bad and Sean Payton did what he had to do. So, okay. But now this is your guy. And this is your guy that you said could start week 1. That you did everything to make sure that everybody believed he was ready to start week 1. You need to help him out. So if he's so sure that this is going to work with Bo Nix, I know it's a tough defense. All you're asking if you're a Broncos fan is to win 14-10, 14-9, 13-12. Nobody should be asking the Broncos to put up 30 or even 20 points. But you better be able to scheme it up so you can win this football game. Because that's what the Broncos are paying you for. That's why the Broncos are letting you turn over 75% of this roster in 2 years' time to mold it in your own image. At some point, that's got to start to bear fruit. You know, we talk about this with other coaches taking over teams. Well, they won with the previous coach's players. Sean Payton did some winning with other people's players. Now these are his players. I know Pittsburgh's defense is scary, but at some point, Sean Payton's genius has got to show through here. If only for one key third down. If only for one scoring drive to win the game. Or else he's going to get a lot more questions that he's going to be deeply offended about coming up next week. 719-247-1313. Take your thoughts on Sunday's game. More or less excited without Russ. More or less optimistic that the Broncos will win. Because it's a weird thing. And I know you're going to say I'm not the person to ask because obviously I've been saying Justin Fields should be the Pittsburgh Steelers starter all along. But isn't there kind of a feeling that it's less likely the Broncos win because Russell Wilson's not playing? Or is it just me? 719-247-1313. Coming up next, Corey Roldan talking prep football, college football, and, of course, Broncos Steelers here on Extra Sports 1300. Welcome back, Drive Time Sports, on the Friday before a significant weekend in football at every level here in the state of Colorado, high school, college, NFL, all of it. And who better to join me to discuss every level of football in this state than Corey Roldan of KKTV 11 Sports. Corey, how are you today?
Doing well. Just excited for this weekend. Like you said, a lot's going on. We got Friday night football, Friday night end zone tonight at 10:15, covering a lot of really good high school football in this state. Really excited for it.
What, obviously, if there's, a last second touchdown or something crazy that happens, you'll move that up to the A block. But going into tonight, what is the high school game that you're looking to feature later this evening?
Well, we have a couple. First, I just want to tell you, Ryan, one team I've been impressed with, and that's the Mesa Ridge Grizzlies with Bryce Reel. Bryce was he's a starting quarterback, but he was also on the basketball team that won the state title. So dude, they got a couple really good running backs. They are absolutely loaded. But for tonight, you got a couple of really good games between Cheyenne Mountain and Coronado. That's at Gary Berry. That's going to be a really fun matchup. Also, Denver South coming down to face Vista Ridge. That's going to be a really good football game. Also, we got Pueblo East and Pueblo South. That's
Cannon game.
Really good, yes, that's a really good game as well. And also a bunch of fun smaller games. How about Palmer Ridge and Lewis Palmer? Now that's your game of the week right there.
But you're covering all of them tonight.
No, we got everything.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be at Cheyenne Mountain, Coronado at Gary Berry. But our game of the week, which one of our reporters is at, is going to be probably Palmer Ridge, Lewis Palmer. It's always a really good one. And that's a 7:00 kickoff. But I mean, so far this year, like I said earlier, I've been impressed with Mesa Ridge, who beat Northfield last week 50-47. It was a shootout.
That's my kind of game.
In the honor of the Pac-12 coming back
Oh,
as the Pac-12 After Dark game, right?
Oh, the Pac-12. Surely you jest. Like they can call themselves what they could call them SEC West if they want to. That's not the Pac-12. It will never be the Pac-12, what they are trying to cobble together.
I mean, no, it's gonna be a stronger Mountain West. I'll say that. The Mountain West Conference, but you're adding Oregon State, Washington State, and I guess Memphis, Tulane, and 8 Mountain West schools.
You know what would be even better than this stronger Mountain West that you allude to, and I agree with you. You put these two conferences head to head, and the Pac-12, put that in quotes. The Pac-12 is, or the six pack, as everyone's calling them, is stronger, I would say. But what would be even stronger is if Oregon State and Washington State just joined the Mountain West, and they would have all of their teams. Now you have Air Force and Wyoming and UNLV and Nevada, and you would have all the teams together.
It stinks about college football is they don't care about that. They only care about TV money and marketing. And Mountain West right now only gets about $5 million a year per team with their TV deal, so they don't want to join that. It's kind of a sad situation because Wyoming and New Mexico and Utah State are teams that get left behind, and it's not good for college football. And we've seen this nobody should know that better than Oregon State and Washington State.
Right.
They got left behind.
The irony, right?
Yeah, and now they're going to leave teams behind to create this new, I guess, the new leader in the group of 5 or group of 6.
Yeah. I think they're going. I think they're going to end up merging. I think this is who's in charge. What are we calling ourselves? Whose people are. I think that's what this ultimately is about. And I think that not to say, because I think there's actually a really unique opportunity. I was talking about this yesterday for Air Force. Like, is this really the conference that you want to be for football, right? For football, it's like, well, I don't know. Could you be a conference opponent with Navy and Army? Like, that might be intriguing for Air Force, but I think ultimately these two conferences will end up merging.
Yeah, but I've been seeing a lot of they want the Texas, they want UTSA, they want Rice, they want San Antonio Market, they want
your boys.
Yeah, if I'm Tulane, I'm waiting for the ACC to fall apart because that's where they should be. Memphis, but I've seen that. I've seen a lot of those four schools, and then UNLV, and I think Air Force may get a bid with UNLV as well. But the American point being in the same conference as Navy and Army, that would be good as well. But
yeah.
I hope you're right where they just merge, but my gut feeling is there's going to be San Jose State, Utah State, New Mexico, Wyoming are going to be left behind.
Well, some egos will have to be put aside for sure, but we'll see how this plays out. We know how this goes. It is a long way from being over, but on that note, let me ask you, who do you think needs a win more? And I feel like there are two better answers than the others, but I'll throw everybody in together. Rams, Buffs, Falcons, Broncos. Who needs a win the most?
Man, my top two answers are actually in the Rocky Mountain Showdown.
So let me ask you, who needs to win tomorrow night's game more? CU or CSU?
I think Jay Novell needs to win. You've been there for, what is this, third year?
3 years. Yeah, third.
Yeah, 3 years. You haven't had a signature win. You should have won last year's game. You come into this year with so much promise and hype, right? Obviously, Colorado has that too, but you're at home. First time since 1996, Ryan, that they're hosting the Rocky Mountain Showdown. You just joined the Pac-6. You need a statement. You need a statement to recruits. You need a statement to everybody that, hey, you know what? We are going the right way. Because, yeah, Colorado needs this win desperately. Coach Prime cannot, they're already struggling. But for Jay Norvell, dude, like, if you don't make a bowl game this year, I don't see any way he keeps his job.
Yeah, man, they get pretty impatient in Fort Collins.
So I'm going to say Colorado State.
Okay. In your travels up I-25 to Denver and the Broncos facility, what would you say the theme of the week is with the Broncos going into this game against the Steelers?
Accountability. So talking to Quinn Miners, the highest paid offensive lineman on a team, probably the best offensive lineman on the team, he was like, I didn't play well. I missed blocks. I wasn't physically dominating in the run game. And then you kind of heard it from some of his receivers, his playmakers. Yeah, Bo made rookie mistakes. He forced too much. He had 2 interceptions, right? But the Broncos didn't really help him either. There was a couple of drops, one by little Jordan Humphrey in the second drive of the game at 3rd and 7. You got to catch that football. And then Cortland Sutton had a big drop there in the second quarter. They were never in a rhythm. Javonte Williams missed some holes. But this Broncos team seems to be accountable for their mistakes, Ryan. And that's good. That's culture. That's changing. Now, will they correct their mistakes? I don't know, man. This Steelers defense is one of the best in the NFL. TJ Watt's a monster, man. He is a monster. And then on the other side of things, the Steelers are going to run the football. You don't expect Russ to play. But Justin Fields, Harris, they're going to run the football. And that's the one thing the Broncos defense struggled with last week.
Corey Roldan, KKTV 11 Sports, my guest here on Drive Time Sports. How much of the luster has come off of Sunday with no Russell Wilson, or we believe all signs point to no Russ on Sunday? Does that lessen it a lot for you, or do you still think that there's enough consequence in this game to get people excited?
Well, it's the NFL. It's Bo Nix's first home game, right, where he's starting a regular season home game. So there's still a lot of, luster, as you say. But yeah, I mean, it kind of stinks that Russ isn't going to play, or probably won't play, just because you expected a Petty Sean to be out there to prove that he made the right decision, and Russ to kind of go out and prove itself. It's the big storyline of this week, and that storyline being taken away. Yeah, it kind of stinks, but there's still a lot to be excited about. Bo Nix, he struggled last game. Let me see how he develops and responds on Sunday in his first home start. And two proud, historic NFL franchises going at it.
The one game that we haven't talked about yet, I'll check that box with you before I let you go, Corey. What is Air Force's big idea to be able to move the football against Baylor tomorrow?
That's a great question, Ryan.
I thought that you would get it out of the old ball coach this week.
Yeah. Look, man, how do you move the football when you couldn't move the football against Merrimack and San Jose State, and now you're taking on the Baylor Bears? What do you got to do here? Well, the offensive line has to get some kind of push. They got to physically impose their will against the Big 12 Baylor Bears. John Boucher needs to gain confidence, right? All this hype and talking about him throughout all fall camp, he needs to get some easy passes, and he needs to start converting on 3rd and shorts. How many 3rd and 1s or 4th and 1s have the Falcons been stopped the first 2 games? Like 5 or 6. That was a season for Air Force majority of the time, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. I think the defense has got some studs, right? Candy Goff, Jamari Bellamy. They got some guys in that secondary who could really play in the defensive line. So the best hope for Air Force for making this game competitive is the defense creates a lot of turnovers. It's basically the playbook of last week with the Broncos Seahawks. That's how Air Force stays in this game, is the defense creates 3 or 4 turnovers, maybe scores on one, and just gets short fields for their offense to try to do something. But it's a bad week to see improvement from this offense, just in the talent difference between San Jose State and Baylor.
Yeah. We'll see how it goes tomorrow. I know a big theme with Troy Calhoun is the guys just need to play. So they'll play more on Saturday against Baylor, and we'll see if it clicks for them offensively. Corey Roldan will be Gary Berry tonight, Fort Collins tomorrow, maybe Denver on Sunday, and perhaps traversing the Sahara on Monday. This guy's all over the place.
And we're at the Black Canyon, exploring the Black Canyon National Park yesterday. High school football. It's a great time in Colorado. I start seeing the leaves change. That means it's football season, Ryan.
That's why you're here, buddy, right?
Yeah, you gotta love it. You gotta be excited. Fun weekend in Colorado football this week. But hey, one quick point about Air Force: there's no better experience in going to play on the road against a Big 12 team. This is how you kind of grow up a little bit.
Yeah. Well, let's hope, because I know in getting some of the reaction from people that listen to this show that it's starting to lessen a little bit when it comes to this Air Force football team, and all it takes is one good performance to get everybody back on board. So we'll see how tomorrow goes for Air Force, for CU, CSU, Sunday with the Broncos. So much going on. Corey is all over it. Catch his work on KKTV 11 on a nightly basis, and follow him on X for his travels throughout the globe at Corey_Roldan TV. Corey, appreciate it, bud. Enjoy your weekend.
You as well. It's always great to talk to you.
Yep. Thanks, bud. Corey Roldan, KKTV, my guest here on Drive Time Sports. Yeah, I don't know that this is the best game for Air Force to figure everything out, for all of it to click. But if it does, boy, wouldn't that be a massive, massive win for this Air Force team? 719-247-1313. Take some of your texts on what should be a very interesting weekend of football, if nothing else. We'll do that next here on Extra Sports 1300. Join us in supporting Ronald McDonald House Charities of Southern Colorado. Today is their Ronald McDonald House celebration, sponsored by MGA Home Care. Ronald McDonald House has provided over 37 years of care for critically ill children and their families, and none of them have received a bill. It is support from you and I that keeps them doing this great work. And today is a day where they're looking to raise money. And if you can give, a recurring gift of $20 per month is entered into a drawing for a $500 Shields gift card. Several ways for you to give, as little or as much as you are comfortable with. You could text the word radio to 719-223-3456. That's 223-3456. You can also go to extrasports1300.com if you would like to donate, and if you can, and I know the people there would be eternally grateful if you could. Getting back to the text line, Ryan says if CU doesn't win 40+14, then I'll seriously doubt their legitimacy this year. And adds, with the Broncos, looking back at the quarterback carousel and all the problems it's created for the Broncos, I can't help but think what could have been with Drew Lock. Hashtag, that's my quarterback. Well, T.O., let me start with the second thing first. You don't have to wonder. And I don't even need to pick apart Drew Lock as a quarterback. Look at that situation. After he has a promising start to his career, they change offensive coordinators, defensive head coach, lacking on the talent side of things. Even if you believed in what Drew Lock was, and I didn't, but if you did, you have to see that the environment was not going to get the most. At least you can understand that Drew Lock, being a second-round pick, he needed to have a perfect incubator to get the most out. Like, I'm talking what Jalen Hurts had in Philadelphia with the run game, with the offensive line, with the pushing of the tushes and all of that kind of stuff. Like, you need a great situation to get the most out of a quarterback like Drew Lock, and that Broncos situation wasn't even good, let alone great. But that's what will make things turn very quickly with Sean Payton, because this is supposed to be a great situation for Bo Nix. And while he is a better quarterback than Drew Lock, and maybe by a fairly wide margin, he still is not Caleb, Jaden, not even a fully developed Drake May. That guy is going to be better than Bo Nix if the Patriots do things right. So you still need a really good situation, and that's what this is supposed to be. With Sean Payton, with the offensive line, with the running game, this is supposed to be a great situation for Bo Nix to step into. And one game in, and it's only one game, but, you know, it gets late early around here. Got to start showing it. I think Sean Payton and company need to help out Bo Nix more than he needs to help them right now. And that should apply to Chicago. Look at what Chicago did. They helped out Caleb Williams a lot. They bailed out Caleb Williams. Broncos didn't. Broncos needed Bo Nix at the end of that football game, and that shouldn't be the way it is, especially for someone like Sean Payton on the offensive side. So that's why I say Sunday, a loss or a Sunday that doesn't look that much better is more of an indictment on Sean Payton than it is Bo Nix. And I know Sean Payton has the track record, but what I'm talking about is this fit, this experiment, which Sean Payton has never done before. I've been talking about it all week. You have to start wondering here pretty soon whether Sean Payton is the right kind of coach to develop a rookie quarterback. It's a different skill set. You could have a lot of brains like Sean Payton does. Still might not work. You need some patience. You need to fully invest in the development of the quarterback and not get sidetracked by losing. Got to keep the main thing. And I don't know if Sean Payton did that on Sunday. And we'll see if he does on this game. As far as CU goes, 40-14, 40 plus to 14, a little aggressive, I would say, but your point is well taken. And I said this last hour. Like, CU needs this to be a statement game, and winning in triple overtime is not a statement game. So they need to win comfortably in order for some of the heat to get off of Deion Sanders in this program. Not all of it, right? And no scoreline against CSU is going to make the Paul Feinbaums and the Jason Whitlocks and the Clay Travises and the Sean Keelers, all of a sudden change their mind about Deion Sanders, right? Those are the ungettable gets. Never going to bring them over. Okay, but for the people who are legitimate like you and I, who are not letting, the results or expectations run rampant and kind of keeping it realistic, but also observing and saying that there are really some issues here. A decisive victory against CSU would go a long way for those people. And a decisive victory where they commit to running the football and they run it, and that allows Shedeur to be as brilliant as he can be. This defense continuing what they did in the second half against Nebraska, is that real? Or was that Nebraska letting off the gas? Because right now it's a 50-50. It could be either. Could be a little bit of both. This should be a statement game. And for CSU, I think they're going to get CU's full attention. And they need to hold up against that as well. The line, as of this very moment, is Colorado minus 7.5. And no matter which direction you go, whether it's to Colorado State or to Colorado, you'll get it at minus 110 on the Circa Sports Colorado app. And that is par for the course because that's what they strive to do. They want that lower hold. Other sports books, they'll get you in with these great free bet promotions, and then little by little, they'll recoup what they gave you by putting up minus 115, minus 120. Now, sometimes it's going to happen, but Circa says, go ahead, shop around and see that they have the lowest holds. They have the tightest money line splits. They keep as little money as possible on large market bets like futures. And I could tell you, I've compared, I've contrasted. They're right. So find out for yourself. Download the Circa Sports Colorado app today, where it's better for the better. Get it? if I was on TV, you would see BET. Better for the better. Must be 21 years or older and present in Colorado to bet. Gambling problem? Call or text 1-800-GAMBLER. That will be my time. I have to mosey on up to the Air Force Academy. If you're out on I-25, if you don't mind clearing a path, that would be super. But I have Air Force women's soccer taking on Army. Should be a great one. Laura Busby's team's off to a fantastic start. And a win tonight against Army would be huge to cap off the non-conference season. That will be on ESPN Plus in the Mount West Network tonight, if you are so inclined. Enjoy your football weekend wherever it might take you. We'll reconvene Monday at 3 to go through it all here on Extra Sports 1300.